okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions on the administrative code?
Mr. Chairman, we do have a presentation
Pardon?
we have a presentation if that's appropriate.
Of this here?
Yeah, it's very brief, it's 5 slides, you have it in front of you.
Nobody here to see it.
Oh, it'll be on TV as well.
All right.
So I appreciate the committee's indulgence in allowing us to provide a presentation on the administrative code. It's been a long process since we started. It's been the work of about 6 months between the mayor's office, the solicitor's office, and the Collins Center at UMass. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody had a good understanding of what we were working with, our philosophy in trying to put it together, and just frankly, why do we need one? So the administrative code is an organization of all the city agencies and departments in the executive branch, and into a more, and for the first time, it's always been very well organized and very well executed. However, it's the first time that it's been codified in some sort of way in black and white on paper. So it was a difficult task to try to reevaluate how we do business, how we deliver services, how we organize things under the law, what we need, what we don't need, the ordinances that exist, and some other things. We need one pursuant to the charter. Section 5-1 requires the mayor to submit a series of administrative orders to the council for their consideration. The council is allowed an up or down vote on this with no amendments. And the organization that we decided to go with was do a comprehensive review, and I'll go over this a little bit, and I'll go over this in more depth in just a little bit, is to codify the administrative code through ordinance, and not necessarily just through a series of piecemeal orders. Our process for drafting was pretty in-depth, and we have another slide to go over that later. And I'd ask you to invite Melissa from the mayor's office up as well. She played a critical role in making sure this was a reality. Our process going forward through the city council, this is for your consideration tonight. This is more of an advice and consent. There's no amendments allowed to be offered by the council, and it needs to be referred out to a public hearing as required by the charter. Again, it's required by the Everett Home Rule Charter in Section 5-1. The city council is not, under the charter, they're not allowed to amend the, not allowed. It's a straight up or down vote. I'm sure that if you convey your concerns to the mayor, he can amend it on his own, but this council cannot amend it per the charter. Because you got to go yes or no. So we want to provide you with the best information. We spent a lot of time, and it's a pretty comprehensive and lengthy document, so we want to make sure that everybody had the best information. Again, this is an organization of all the agencies, departments, offices, and divisions into a single comprehensive order. Our approach, we took a comprehensive review, and we consolidated a number of local ordinances that apply to the administration of government. We went through the revised ordinances page by page and line by line, pulled out executive functions and administrative functions that were created by the council, the previous council, in this council over time, that apply to the administration of government. And we took them out and we redlined them and we included them within the administrative code. The entire executive went through a review and study of all city departments and agencies completed by the Edward G. Collins Center at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, a copy of which Melissa was the point person on working on that, so she can provide you with a copy of that report as well. And also an analysis of all city departments and commissions with a focus on a delivery of service, not just simply organizing it in a document. We wanted to kind of take a holistic approach towards what we were doing so we can make sure that we weren't just organizing things and making sure that they were in the right place. We want to make sure that they're the right departments to be for the delivery of service for the residents, keeping our eye on the ball. The role of the city council in this regard is advice and consent. No amendments are to be offered by the city council, and it needs to be referred out to a public hearing after this, and then the adoption of the order through a straight up or down vote. The second part that's going to be very important to this is the repeal and restructuring of the revised ordinances to prevent any duplication or conflict within the administrative code and with the existing ordinances. This is designed, we worked very closely with the city clerk to look and say, all right, in section 2 of the revised ordinances, which currently address administration of government, take all those things that we redlined, codified in the AC and the administrative code, and place them again back into the revised ordinances through section 2. Executive functions under the charter are executive authority over all City of Everett operations and administration, and that's in section 3-2 of the charter. This means the enforcement and application of all local laws and authorized state laws, the management of all city departments and personnel, excluding those in the legislative branch, supervision of city property and assets, execution of deeds and contracts, appointments of city officers and members of boards and commissions, and financial administration over the city's funds. Multiple member boards and commissions serve a critical role in city government. We all know that what they are, the zoning board, the planning board, the recreation commission, which which no longer exists under the current administrative code. They're created by ordinance at the local level or through state law, something like the Cultural Commission or the Board of Health. Boards and commissions, they serve as advisors. Regulatory bodies like the Licensing Commission or quasi-judicial bodies like the Public Works Commission, which hears water abatements in the Board of Appeals, and the Board of Assessors, which hears of tax abatement applications. There are some key changes. All boards and commissions are going to remain the same, except the Recreation Commission has been abolished, and the City Services Commission has now become more defined. It will now be known as the Public Works Commission to follow the modern trend of moving city services into public works. And it's going to exclusively be responsible for the management of the Glenwood Cemetery and water sewer abatements. All appointments required by the charter and that are outlined in the city, all appointments are required to be voted on by the city council, and all the city officers outlined in the administrative code are considered department heads, unless it's specifically laid out therein. All department heads are appointed for a term up to 3 years. It allows the mayor flexibility in appointing individuals to any term up to 3 years or any fraction thereof. New departments that exist, this is not an expansion of government, it's just a reorganization of government. It's based on the Collins Center study and our own review. 2 new departments were formed. The Department of Financial Services, managed by a chief financial officer that includes, as you see, the flow chart that was included within the materials presented tonight, includes auditing, treasurer collector, and budgeting, and several other departments. We have a formalized Department of Health and Human Services encompassing all the health and human services functions and departments under one umbrella, and a formalized Department of Planning and Development, which was never previously the case. We made other changes for better organization and for better identification. For instance, the Department of Public Works, the Executive Office of the Mayor, and the Office of Emergency Management all exist now, but you might not be able to find them very easily. Emergency management was previously known as civil defense. That's kind of a dated term following the modern trend. In kind of the modern course of emergency management, we kind of encapsulated civil defense inside emergency management. And that's it for our presentation. We do have Melissa's here as well, and we're happy to answer any questions that you guys might have based on your review of the document that was presented last week.
So, there's no comment from the councilors, but maybe we have to just refer this back out to the, to a public hearing, if there's no questions.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion?
Oh.
Motion is to refer this back out to a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The ayes opposed, okay. Three ayes, 3 ayes, and one nay. Next order of business.
All right. Item number 2, this ordinance offered by Council Michael K. Marchese as president. The city established a code of ethics for all municipal employees.
Any questions from the members?
If we could just have a minute to read this.
From the chair, if I may, just want to let you know that City Clerk Michael Matarazzo looked at this and thought it was a very good piece, and he approves this. Just want you to let the members know.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, this is the product of the conversation that was happened at that occurred during the previous committee hearing, where we discussed kind of the structure of the ordinance and some concerns that came out of the solicitor's office and other city departments regarding how the ordinance as proposed would work with existing conflict of interest law that's created at the state level. So working with Clerk Matarazzo, we drafted something that would be able to reflect current state law and any changes that might happen to state law without creating any enforcement issues on the state level and any conflict. So people wouldn't have to look towards two bodies of law in order to conform their activities to work with either the City of Everett conflict of interest law or the state of Massachusetts conflict law. So what the new draft does is it codifies that within existing ordinance, and it says whatever the state ethics law is, the state conflict law is, municipal employees have to follow that. They have to file our disclosures. Those disclosures will be available publicly, and then it creates a reporting requirement through the solicitor's office. So the city solicitor is required under the ordinance to report any suspicion of a violation of the conflict law to the State Ethics Commission for their enforcement and their adjudication. It goes a little further than the state conflict law in just the black letter law of Chapter 268A that appears in the general laws. It also makes sure that municipal employees have to follow any advisories that were issued by the Ethics Commission, any rulings by the Ethics Commission, any regulations by the Ethics Commission. So it's not just taking the black letter conflict law and applying it to city employees, which it did already, but it also lets them know that there are existing other bodies of law that they have to conform to as well.
Yes, Councilor Hanlon.
Solicitor's office did. It should have been, I do, it was included within your materials that were available
It's on-
tonight.
It was on the,
The old, yeah, I have. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
It says that regardless of the members of the city council, the school committee shall not testify in the capacity as the member of the school committee of the other city council before any other board, commission, administrative officer, agent, or the federal government, so on and so on. But do I read this as saying that we can't go down here to the Board of Appeals and tell them that I'm not in favor of an apartment being built, let's say there's an apartment, I'm not in favor of that being done like that, I can't do that?
Under the old draft, you can't. Under the new draft, you can. This is not a provision that's included within the conflict law.
So this here is just something we made up, not the law?
No. Yeah, that's not something that's included within the state level conflict law. I think this is an expansion of the statute that it makes it prohibits providing any unwarranted privilege or exception to that isn't available to similarly situated individuals. So it would prevent you from speaking on one apartment but not speaking on another apartment because it would distinguish between the two in a different way and could possibly create a conflict. That's my reading of it. But it would also create not just counselors speaking before the zoning board, but the immediate example that comes to mind is any counselor that spoke before the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, either here in Everett or in Boston. The mayor did so a number of times with great success. This would prevent that. And it's not something that's included within the conflict law. The two-page one, I'm sorry, the ethics code we're talking about now. The administrative, yeah, it should be 32 pages, 32 pages, I believe. Okay.
Any questions from the councilors?
Any question?
Oh,
Excuse
yes,
me,
I'm sorry.
I have a
Excuse me.
question.
Question.
Yeah, it's okay.
Counselor,
No, he was recognizing me when you,
Council on the top,
all
on
right,
top
so-
of the floor of town.
again, I do see that, so I do see some of the changes in here, and it does simplify it, okay? And I didn't realize that the previous draft had us in a position where we couldn't speak on behalf of our constituents at a meeting. We've done that for decades, and we still can now under the new.
Yeah, it's not prohibited by the conflict law. It does, there are, and I would advise everyone, every municipal employee to, if there's ever a question, to either ask the solicitor's office or call the attorney of the day there. There are some prohibitions that have been included in the wake of the probation scandal when it comes to providing recommendations for employment, using your official position and other city resources in order to recommend an individual for employment. That there are restrictions on that. But as long as you're not, and again, it's a case-by-case basis, so it would be very tough to, and that's why having a blanket statement included within the ethics code to say that a blanket prohibition is very difficult, because it kind of throws the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. Because then you can't speak on those things, but you can't do the conduct that they're looking to prohibit, but you also can't do a number of other conducts that are prohibited and are inherent upon a counselor's position or a mayor's position or any other municipal employee's position.
What, take us through if you can, now, what is the process if there is a violation? Okay, at any level of city employment?
If there's a suspicion of a violation, the city solicitor is obligated, and they would be able to, and inside, it's required that they can interface with any level of personnel that they need to in order to do that, in order to ascertain the suspicion and judge whether it warrants to be forwarded to the State Ethics Commission. Any individual, regardless of whether they're a public employee or not, is able to file a complaint with the Ethics Commission, no matter what. John Q. Public on the street thinks that there's an ethics violation, they can call up enforcement. They'll do an intake on that matter, and they'll begin their investigation. If it's warranted, they'll continue. And the process gets a little complicated from there. But pretty much they present it to the commission with an order to show cause, and the commission votes on that, and then they begin proceedings.
Thank you.
More questions? Excuse with customary thanks. Thank you for appearing.
Thank you.
Make a motion to send it out to city council with favorable recommendation.
Motion is to send it out to regular council with a favorable recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have adjourned.